The microphone felt like it weighed 100 pounds as I stood there, staring out at 200 of my coworkers at the annual MedTech Solutions dinner. Camille Dorsey, my boss, had just handed me the mic and asked me to say a few words as her assistant. Assistant. After 3 years, that's still how she introduced me. I forced a smile. Thank you all for making me feel like part of the family here at MedTech Solutions, I began, keeping my voice steady even though my heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. Working with such dedicated, compassionate people helped me find purpose again after losing my husband. This job gave me something to hold on to when everything else fell apart. Warm applause rose from the crowd. I spotted a few co-workers nodding, others discreetly wiping tears. Even the CEO gave me a soft smile. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. Real, grounding, soul-deep belonging. But that feeling didn't last. Camille stood up, her red dress catching the spotlight as she took the mic from my hands. Her smile was razor-thin. "How sweet," she cooed, her voice slicing clean through the applause. "Well, Whitney won't be with us next year, but let's all wish her the best in finding herself somewhere else." The room fell into stunned silence. My stomach dropped. My face flushed. 200 pairs of eyes stared at me. I stood frozen, every nerve in my body on fire with embarrassment. I didn't know it then, but that public humiliation was just the start. Monday morning hit me like a freight train. I sat quietly across from Camille in her immaculate office. I was still processing the dinner fiasco. Camille didn't even look up from her laptop as she spoke. "Whitney, your employment is terminated, effective immediately," she said, only glancing up for a second. Her ice blue eyes were unreadable. My hands trembled. "I don't understand. My performance reviews have always been excellent. What did I do wrong?" She leaned back in her plush leather chair, smirking ever so slightly. "Emotional instability. You've become too attached to this place. Frankly, it's unprofessional." "Attached?" I said, stunned. "I've been here 3 years. I've never missed a deadline. Not once." "You should have known your place," she cut in sharply. Then she hit a button on her desk phone. "Security, Whitney Monroe is ready to be escorted out." The next hour blurred. I packed my things while co-workers whispered from behind cubicle walls. The security guard, he looked almost apologetic, walked me out, cardboard box in hand. My severance check felt more like an insult than a payout. As I walked through the parking lot, Camille's laugh echoed from her office window. That sound would haunt me for weeks. The unemployment office was worse than I imagined. The clerk, a weary woman with tired eyes and thick glasses, scanned my file. "I'm sorry, Miss Monroe. According to your employer's report, you were terminated for insubordination and volatile behavior. That disqualifies you from receiving benefits." I blinked, trying to process. That's not true. I was never reprimanded, never even written up. "The documentation says otherwise. You can file an appeal, but it'll take months." I left, numb, and drove back to my apartment, the one that felt smaller and colder by the second. Rent was due in 2 weeks. My savings? Maybe $300. The fridge? A hum and a hollow echo. That night, I went to Riverside Cemetery. I found David's headstone, dropped to my knees, and laid my palm against the cold marble. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "She destroyed me, David. 3 years of my life and she threw me out like trash." The wind rustled through the oak trees above. For a moment, I almost heard him, his voice urging me to fight. But how do you fight someone with that much power? Then came the call from Janet. She was a former co-worker and friend, her voice shaky with emotion. "Whitney, I have to tell you something," she said. "The department coordinator promotion you were supposed to get, it was already approved. The paperwork was in HR." I froze. What promotion? She gave it to her niece. Instead, Madison. That's why she fired you. Madison. 23. Fresh out of nowhere. No degree. Barely a month on the job. She used you, Janet continued, her voice trembling with anger. She made you work late, cancel vacations, promised you that job, then handed it to someone else, and kicked you out. She laughed about it, Janet added after a pause. Said you needed to be taken down a peg, that you were getting too big for your britches. She planned your public takedown. The betrayal hurt worse than anything else. But under all that pain, something new was beginning to take shape, something sharp and steely. She thought. She'd broken me. She had no idea who she was messing with. That Friday, Janet showed up at my apartment. Her eyes were red, and she was holding a bottle of wine. I quit, she said, brushing past me into the living room. I couldn't take it anymore. We sat on my old couch as she told me everything. How Camille had bullied other staff, driven people to quit, stolen credit for other people's projects. You were the only one who ever stood up to her, Janet said, wiping her nose. Remember when she screamed at Tommy for being 5 minutes late? You walked straight into her office and called her out. I remembered. Tommy's mother had just been diagnosed. He was barely holding it together. Camille had humiliated him in front of everyone. I'd walked into her office and told her it was inappropriate and unprofessional. She hated you for that, Janet said. She saw people respected you more than her. She's been waiting for a chance to get rid of you. My chest tightened. Marcus is having panic attacks. Sarah's job hunting. Everyone's walking on eggshells. It's toxic. I stared at the city lights outside the window. We have to do something, I said. Janet looked at me, surprised. What can we do? She holds all the power. I turned from the window, eyes set. Maybe she does, but power built on lies doesn't last. Forever. Monday morning, I took the first real step. The waiting room at the Georgia Department of Labor was buzzing under flickering fluorescent lights. I sat there clutching my termination papers like a lifeline. A man in a worn blazer and kind eyes stepped out and called my name. Miss Monroe? I'm Officer Rodriguez, he said as we sat down. Tell me what's going on. I told him everything. The abrupt firing, the false claims, the lack of any warnings, write-ups, or documentation. He listened carefully, jotting notes in a legal pad. This doesn't add up, he muttered, flipping through Camille's report. She claims multiple instances of insubordination, but there's no progressive discipline, no warnings, no documented concerns. Because there weren't any, I said flatly. He nodded. We see this sometimes. Employers lie to dodge paying benefits. We're opening a case. Here. He handed me a packet of forms. Fill this out. Dates, witnesses, details. Anything you remember. It may take months, but if we find that she fabricated anything, there will be consequences. As I left that building, something stirred inside me. Hope. She thought she could silence me. That no one would question her. She was wrong. That same afternoon, I reached out to legal aid. A young attorney named Sarah Chen agreed to meet with me. She specialized in employment law. Her office was tiny, packed with case files and legal books that towered to the ceiling. But the moment we sat down, I felt like I had someone in my corner. Wrongful termination cases can be tricky, she warned, flipping through my papers. But if we can prove she lied about your performance, especially to block your unemployment, we might have a real case. Sarah was sharp like glass. She reviewed every document in my file with laser focus. This is odd, she said, pointing to a line in my termination paperwork. She claims you were emotionally volatile, but she doesn't cite a single incident. Because it never happened, I replied. The question is, can we prove that? She asked. Do you have any written records, emails, evaluations? I reached into my bag and pulled out a fat folder. Performance reviews, commendations, thank you notes from clients. Every scrap of proof I'd kept over the years without even knowing why. Sarah's eyes widened. Whitney, this is gold. She flipped to a document from just 2 months before I was fired. Exceptional performance, valuable team member, recommended for advancement. She looked up. That's a direct contradiction to what she's now claiming. Exactly. That's when she started treating me differently. Sarah laid out the papers in a timeline. Reviews, emails, memos. One by one, they told a story. I had been a model employee, consistent, professional, dedicated. We're filing, she said. She opened this door when she lied. We're going through it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, legal pad in hand. I wrote down every memory I had of Camille's behavior. Every insult, every passive-aggressive jab, every time she made me feel less than. It started small. Snide comments about my clothes, subtle digs at my handwriting. Then it escalated. Canceling my vacation for coverage needs that turned out to be lies. Assigning overtime for tasks she never reviewed. Refusing to let me attend trainings that could have boosted my career. I pulled out my old work diary, just a small notebook where I used to track my daily tasks. But as I flipped through it, a pattern leapt out. C yelled at team over deadline. That was moved up without notice. C took credit for board presentation. C told me I was too emotional after I cried quietly in my car during lunch. It was all there. I just hadn't seen it as a pattern until now. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. This is Marcus from work. I heard about your case. I have something to show you. Can we meet? Marcus, the quiet guy from accounting who had started having panic attacks. We met at a little cafe the next morning. He looked nervous, constantly scanning the room like he expected Camille to walk in any second. She's been changing people's files, he whispered. After they leave. After they get fired. I saw her do it. Can you prove it? Slid a flash drive across the table. I copied the audit logs before I quit. She changed your file 3 times, after your termination. I brought it straight to Sarah. She opened the drive and nearly dropped her coffee. This is huge, Whitney. There it was, in plain code and time-stamped entries. Camille had altered my performance file after I was fired. Added 3 disciplinary actions. Changed my rating from excellent to needs improvement. That's tampering, Sarah said. Completely illegal. Your case just went from a maybe to a slam dunk. But the surprises weren't over. Sarah kept scrolling. She shorted your vacation pay, 80 hours. I blinked. I didn't even notice. I was so focused on getting out. That's wage theft. You earned that time. And she didn't include it in your severance, Sarah started typing. We're adding claims. Document tampering, wage theft, defamation. This isn't just termination anymore. This is systemic abuse. The deeper we dug, the more we found. I pulled out my pay stubs, years of them, and spread them across Sarah's desk. See this? I pointed. March, April, May. Every month since last October, $112 is missing. Sarah frowned, calculating quickly. That's almost $800. She said payroll was looking into it. That was 5 months ago. Sarah leaned back. This isn't negligence. It's a pattern. She's been stealing from you. It hit me all over again. The ramen dinners, the skipped power bills, the anxiety. All while she sat in her office, raking in bonuses and grinning from her ivory tower. Sarah made more notes. She made a mistake thinking you'd walk away quietly. Then the HR department cracked. My phone rang. Hi, Whitney. It's Amy. From HR. I need to ask about your vacation pay. What about it? Well, Camille said you waived it, but I can't find any paperwork. I never waived anything. Silence. Then a low sigh. I believe you, Amy said. Can we talk off the record? We met in a park that evening. Amy looked exhausted. She clutched a plain folder and kept looking over her shoulder. Camille's been pressuring me to back up. Her story, she confessed. She wants me to say there were complaints, that you were difficult. Were there? None. Your file was spotless until she started rewriting it after you were gone. Amy handed me the folder. Copies. Your original performance reviews. I saved them before she could delete them. I opened it. Glowing reviews. Every single one. Why are you helping me? Because it's the right thing to do. And you're not the first. She's done this to others. 3 employees. Same. Pattern. Fired. Accused. Blacklisted. They all just disappeared. But I'm not disappearing, I said. Amy nodded. That's why she's scared. The fallout didn't stop there. A few days later, I went in for a job interview at a local nonprofit. The meeting was going well, until the hiring manager, Mr. Peterson, glanced at my resume and said, almost offhandedly, "We spoke to your previous supervisor. She had some concerning things to say." I already knew where this was going. I tried to keep my tone calm. "What did she say?" He looked uncomfortable. "That you were unreliable, prone to emotional outbursts, that you left several key projects unfinished." My stomach twisted. Lies. All of it. "I'm sorry," he said. "We can't take the risk." I smiled politely, shook his hand, and walked out with as much grace as I could muster. But the second I hit the parking lot, I was dialing Sarah. "She's sabotaging me," I said as soon as she picked up. "That's the 3rd interview that's fallen apart right after they speak to Camille." Sarah's tone went from sympathetic to sharp. "That's interference with prospective employment. It's illegal in Georgia, especially if she's knowingly making false statements." "Can we prove it?" "If we can get an employer to admit what she said and that it cost you the job?" "Yes." That night, I called Mr. Peterson back. "Hi, it's Whitney Monroe. I understand your decision, and I'm not asking you to change it. But would you be willing to speak with my attorney about what was said during the reference check?" There was a long pause. Then, quietly, "Your attorney?" "Yes." "I'm pursuing a wrongful termination case. If my former employer is interfering with my job search using false claims, that's actionable." Silence again. Then, "Have her call me." By the end of that week, the tide was turning. Mr. Peterson called Sarah. He confirmed that Camille had made specific, damaging claims about me that directly contradicted the performance reviews I'd shown him. Claims she couldn't back up, but it didn't stop there. Marcus wasn't the only one ready to talk. 3 more former employees reached out to Sarah's office after hearing about my case. Sarah gathered us all in a conference room. "This is unprecedented," she said, laying out their statements. Each one told a disturbingly similar story. Jennifer. Fired for allegedly stealing office supplies, even though they were clearly labeled for team use. Robert. Terminated for insubordination, right after he flagged. A safety issue in the lab. Lisa. Let go for poor performance a week after filing a complaint about Camille berating a disabled colleague. "She's been running a little kingdom," I muttered, reading over the testimonies. "Firing anyone who threatens her authority." Sarah nodded. "But the good news? You're not alone anymore. We're connecting these cases. 3 wrongful termination suits carry more weight than one." Then came a message that changed everything. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "I used to work in HR at MedTech. Can we talk? I have information about Camille Dorsey." Her name was Patricia Wong. She'd been Camille's HR business partner for nearly 2 years before quietly transferring to another company. We met at a small restaurant across town. She showed up in sunglasses, constantly checking over her shoulder. She looked scared, but determined. "I should have spoken up years ago," she said, her voice low. "But I was afraid." "What do you know?" "Everything," she whispered. Patricia slid a USB drive across the table. Camille made me falsify documents, backdate write-ups, forge signatures. I have emails, direct orders from her to build cases against people she wanted gone. My hands shook as I took the drive. Back at Sarah's office, we opened the files. The evidence was explosive. Email after email. Camille telling Patricia to make it stick on Robert, asking her to create a false narrative for Jennifer, even instructing Patricia to build a file on me 6 months before I was fired. Sarah shook her head. This is a smoking gun, a deliberate, long-term pattern of harassment, retaliation, and illegal practices. We're filing with the National Labor Relations Board, she announced. This goes way beyond one wrongful firing. Camille's violated federal labor laws. We're bringing it all. Then came the call that confirmed everything was changing. A union organizer named Tom Bradley reached out. Miss Monroe, we've been trying to unionize medtech for months. But people are scared. They've seen what happens when someone crosses. Camille, would you be willing to speak with us? We met at a community center. Tom was middle-aged, weathered but passionate. Camille's name comes up every time, he said. We have multiple reports of her threatening employees who attend union info meetings, promising retaliation, blocking organizing efforts. She wasn't just a toxic boss. She was a walking labor law violation. It was bigger than me now. She was hurting dozens of people, blocking their rights, destroying their peace of mind. Then the first settlement offer came. MedTech's lawyers requested a meeting. In Sarah's small office, a man in an expensive suit leaned forward with a rehearsed smile. We'd like to propose a mutually beneficial resolution, he said. $50,000, he added. Full release of all claims. Confidentiality agreement. Miss Monroe walks away. Everyone moves on. Sarah didn't even blink. That's insulting, she said. We're talking about wage theft, document tampering, defamation, and labor violations. Our client disputes those allegations, he replied calmly. Then we'll see you in court, Sarah said, snapping her folder shut. But I should mention, she added with a smile, the National Labor Relations Board is very interested in our evidence. The man's face went pale. NLRB violations mean federal fines, possible oversight, mandatory policy changes. He cleared his throat. Perhaps we can revisit the conversation. That night, I got a frantic call from Janet. Whitney, something's happening at work. Camille's been in meetings all week. The regional VP just flew in. Something was shifting. I could feel it in the air. Electric and dangerous. The next morning, Camille made her dumbest move yet. She called Patricia Wong, not knowing Patricia was already helping us. Patricia recorded the call. You need to keep your mouth shut about those HR files, Camille's voice said, shaky and low. I know you copied things. If you cause problems for me, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. Sarah played the recording 3 times, her grin getting wider with each replay. Witness intimidation, she said. She just gave us the final nail. No court is going to believe anything she says after this. By the end of the week, the corporate structure cracked. The NLRB investigator called me. Miss Monroe, your case has been moved to the top of our list. We're fast-tracking the investigation. The following Friday, Camille was placed on administrative leave. Security escorted her out. Janet texted me a single sentence. She's gone. Relief washed over me in a wave so intense, I could barely breathe. It could have all been avoided. All she had to do was treat people with respect, but she couldn't. The second settlement offer came shortly after. $200,000. Restoration of benefits. A written admission that my firing was regrettable and not based on performance. Sarah closed the folder and looked up. They're scared. The NLRB investigation has uncovered even more violations, going back 5 years. What about the others? I asked. Janet, Marcus, Lisa. They're all getting offers too. The company's trying to make this go away before it turns into a federal case study. I looked down at the settlement papers. The money could change my life. Give me freedom, safety, security. But something didn't sit right. What happens to Camille? She's out, Sarah said. Forced resignation, no severance. Her actions are being reported to the state licensing board. She'll never manage people again. That should have felt like victory, but it felt like something else. Justice. But I wasn't done yet. Looking over the final offer, something gnawed at me. $200,000, benefits restored, an admission that I hadn't been fired. For performance, it was good, but it wasn't enough. I want one more thing, I told Sarah. She raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want a written apology, I said. Not just to me, to every employee Camille mistreated. And I want it posted publicly, in the office, on the wall. Sarah blinked. That's unusual. She humiliated me in front of 200 people, I said. I want the truth to be just as visible as the lie. 3 days of tense negotiation followed. The company squirmed. The lawyers pushed back. But eventually, they caved. The agreement included a formal apology posted in the employee common area. It acknowledged Camille's conduct, condemned her actions, and committed to creating a respectful workplace going forward. It wasn't the full-blown spotlight I'd fantasized about, but it was public, it was real, and for the first time, it was them apologizing to me. Then came a phone call I never expected. Miss Monroe? This is David Kim from Hope Harbor. He was calling from a nonprofit I'd admired for years, a group dedicated to helping displaced workers find new employment and navigate workplace challenges. We read about your case, he said. It's public record now, part of the NLRB's new training material. We'd love to talk to you about a position. My breath caught. The interview process was different. They knew everything, not Camille's version. The real one. We're looking for someone who understands what it's like to stand up to injustice, David said during our second meeting. We believe you can help others do the same. They offered me the job. Administrative coordinator, focused on worker advocacy and legal education, helping others who'd been through what I had. It was perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me. Losing my job had led me straight to my calling. I started 2 weeks later. Walking into that building, into a team that welcomed me with warmth and trust, felt like stepping into the sunlight after months in the dark. On my first day, Maria Santos, the executive director, introduced me to the team. Whitney's going to help us expand our worker advocacy program, she said with a smile. She's lived it. She knows how important this work is. In that moment, I felt something stronger than relief. I felt purpose. 6 months passed. I'd settled into my new role at Hope Harbor. Every day, I worked with people going through the same nightmare I'd survived. People terrified to speak up, unsure if they had any rights, afraid of losing everything. And every day, I gave them what I wished I'd had: validation, information, and most importantly, support. Then one afternoon, I visited MedTech to drop off my final settlement paperwork. The security guard, Bob, spotted me the moment I stepped into the lobby. Whitney, he said, grinning. We heard about your new job. That's amazing, I smiled. Thanks, Bob. How's everything around here? He looked around, leaned in, and lowered his voice. Different, better. The new regional director actually says, "Good morning to people, can you believe that?" I walked through the halls and it was surreal. Same carpets, same walls, but the air felt lighter. People smiled, stopped to chat. Co-workers I hadn't seen in months came up to hug me. Thank you, Marcus whispered. I got promoted. Senior accountant. The new boss actually reads my reports. Thank you, Janet said. She'd been rehired, with a raise. You saved this place. Tommy from accounting stopped me before I left. My mom wanted me to give you this, he said, pressing a small card into my hand. She said you're an angel. Inside was a handwritten note. Thank you for protecting my son. I rode the elevator down in silence, surrounded by warmth, gratitude, and something I hadn't felt in a long time: respect. I thought back to that dinner, to standing on that stage, being blindsided in front of everyone. If Camille could see this moment, I wondered, would she finally understand what she threw away? Because this wave of positive change, of people standing taller, speaking louder, this was what real leadership looked like. The final legal documents arrived in the spring. Case closed. Settlement. Finalized. All claims resolved. I signed my name at the bottom of the last page, my hand steady. It was officially over. That evening, I went back to Riverside Cemetery with a bottle of David's favorite wine and 2 glasses. I did it, I told. His headstone pouring a glass for both of us. I didn't let her break me. The sky glowed with the colors of sunset: orange, gold, pink. And for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. Not just because of what I'd won, but because of who I'd become. That night, I opened a drawer and pulled out a letter. I'd written it months earlier but never mailed it. I unfolded the page and read it aloud. Dear Camille, I want you to know that I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to hate would only hurt me. You tried to destroy my life, but all you did was show me how strong I really am. I hope one day you learn to treat people with kindness. Because real leaders don't lead with fear. They lead with compassion. I folded the letter again, carefully, and tucked it away. I'd never send it. She didn't need to hear it. But writing it had lifted something off my chest. Off my soul. I looked up at the sky and whispered, I think you'd be proud of me, David. I didn't become bitter. I became better. The wind moved through the trees, soft and warm, and for a moment, I could almost feel him smiling. About a year later, my phone rang. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, polite, and professional. Miss Monroe? This is Dr. Rachel Torres from MedTech Corporate. I stiffened. I hadn't heard from anyone at MedTech in months. I just wanted to personally thank you, she said. Your case, it changed everything here. I blinked. You're with HR? I'm the new VP of Human Resources. I was brought in to overhaul the company's employment practices after the investigation. What you exposed, what you endured, showed us that we had systemic issues that had been ignored for far too long. She went on to explain how MedTech had implemented new policies, mandatory management training, anonymous reporting systems, and clear disciplinary procedures to protect employees from retaliation. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high, she added. Turnovers dropped by 70%. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, stunned. You helped us become the company we should have been all along, she said. Then came the real shock. I know this might sound strange, Dr. Torres continued, but we'd be honored if you'd speak at our upcoming leadership conference. We're focusing on workplace respect and ethical management, and your voice would be powerful. I had to laugh. It was too perfect. A year ago, I stood on that same stage, humiliated, blindsided, broken. Now they were asking me to return. As the voice of reform. I'd be honored, I said. Standing on that stage again was surreal. This time I wore a navy blue dress that made me feel strong and grounded. This time my voice didn't shake. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I looked out at the crowd, executives, managers, team leads, all the faces of MedTech's new chapter. I stood here a year ago, I began, as a woman who was publicly humiliated. Someone in power tried to destroy my reputation, my confidence, my career, but she forgot something important. I paused. Truth is more powerful than any title. Applause swelled through the ballroom. This time, it was for the right reasons. Continued. I want to thank Camille Dorsey, I said, and the room went quiet. Because her cruelty taught me how strong I am. Her lies revealed my truth. And her attempt to break me actually set me free. That applause was different. It wasn't just polite. It was understanding. People got it now. After the event, people lined up to talk to me. Some shook my hand. Some hugged me. A few quietly shared their own stories, of bosses who made them feel small, of jobs they walked away from in silence. You changed everything here, one employee said. We're not afraid anymore. I didn't know what to say except thank you, because that's what I'd wanted all along. Not revenge. Change. A few weeks later, I got a letter. It was in a plain white envelope, no return address. Just my name, handwritten in neat, careful script. Inside was a note. Whitney, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. I was wrong. Everything I did to you was wrong. I was insecure, threatened by your competence, your calm, the respect you earned. Instead of learning from you, I tried to destroy you. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I hurt so many good people. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly. Camille. I read it 3 times. I felt everything: anger, sadness, disbelief, and something I hadn't expected. Pity. I called Sarah. I got a letter from her, I said. It's almost a confession. Are you going to respond? She asked. I wasn't sure. I thought about it for days. Finally, I sat down and wrote, Camille, thank you for your honesty. I accept your apology. I hope you find peace and learn to treat others with the kindness everyone deserves. Whitney. I mailed it. I never heard back. But I didn't need to. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about the other person. It's about setting yourself free. Today, my life looks nothing like it did 2 years ago. I wake up in a bright apartment that feels safe and full of light. I make coffee in my favorite mug. I head to work knowing I'm helping people who feel powerless find their voice. At Hope Harbor, I've been promoted to Director of Worker Advocacy. I lead a team of counselors who support employees navigating workplace abuse and retaliation. Every week, people walk through our doors with the same shaky voices I once had, afraid, unsure, desperate for someone to believe them. A young man came in last week, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. My boss is making my life hell, he said. But I need this job. What do? I slid a notebook across the desk. First, document everything. Every email, every comment, every denied opportunity. Second, know that you're not alone. There are laws. There are people. There is a way forward. He stared at me, unsure. I smiled. Trust me. I've been where you are. 6 months later, he called. I won, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I settled my case, and I found a better job. You saved my career, he added. Maybe even my life. No, I told him, smiling through tears. You saved yourself. I just handed you the right tools. These moments happen all the time now. Each one feels like another piece of me healing, not just from Camille, but from every injustice I'd ever let slide. Each person I help is a reminder. Pain doesn't define us. What we do with it does. The anniversary of the dinner approached, another call came. MedTech again, Dr. Torres this time. We'd like to honor you at this year's company dinner, she said. You're the first recipient of our new Workplace Courage Award. I actually laughed. You're kidding. I'm serious. You helped us rebuild, and we want everyone to know it. The symmetry was almost poetic. 2 years after being humiliated in front of the entire company, I would return, honored for my bravery, celebrated for speaking out. I wore blue this time, confident, clear-eyed. And as I stood on that stage once, again, I smiled, because this time I was writing the story. Same ballroom, same lights, same company, but I was not the same woman. 2 years earlier, I stood here paralyzed, blindsided by betrayal. Tonight, I stood tall in front of those same faces, not as someone's assistant, not as someone's victim, but as a voice for every employee who had ever been silenced. I stood here 2 years ago, I began, steady and clear, and someone in power tried to destroy my spirit, my reputation, and my livelihood, but she underestimated something important. A pause. Truth is more powerful than any title. The room erupted in applause, loud, proud, unified. But it was more than that. It was understanding. These weren't people clapping out of politeness. They got it. They had lived it. I want to thank Camille Dorsey, I said next. The room hushed. A few people leaned forward, curious, others holding their breath. Because her cruelty taught me strength. Her lies helped me discover my truth. And her attempt to break me set me free. It wasn't just a speech. It was a full-circle moment, a reclaiming. And for the first time in that room, I wasn't the one made to feel small. I was the one, amplifying others. After the dinner, people lined up to talk. I shook so many hands, heard so many whispered thank yous. Some shared their own stories of silent suffering. Others just cried and held me. One employee clutched my hand tightly and said, "You changed everything here. We're not afraid anymore." And in that moment, I knew I hadn't just fought for myself. I'd fought for them too. A few weeks later, an envelope arrived. It had no return address, just my name, written carefully in slanted script. Inside, a folded piece of stationery and a note. Whitney, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to say this. I was wrong. Everything I did to you was wrong. I was insecure, threatened by your competence and the respect you earned. Instead of learning from you, I tried to erase you. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I've hurt so many people who didn't deserve it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am sorry. Camille. I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt quiet. Sad, maybe. And strangely, a little relieved. I called Sarah and read the letter aloud. "That's as close to a confession as it gets," she said. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't know." Days passed. I carried the letter in my bag, in my pocket, under my pillow. Eventually, I sat down to write. "Camille, thank you for your honesty. I accept your apology. I hope you find peace, and I hope sincerely you learn to treat others with the kindness they deserve. Whitney." I mailed it. I didn't expect a response, and I never got one. But that letter was never really for her. It was for me. Forgiveness, I learned, is not about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the leash. It's about putting down the weight they handed you and walking forward anyway. My days were full now, full of purpose. Hope Harbor, I now led an entire team. We called ourselves the Advocacy crew. We weren't just administrators, we were lifelines. Every week someone new walked in the door with fear in their eyes. My supervisor yelled at me in front of the team. I got fired right after reporting harassment. They're threatening to blacklist me if I speak up. I listened. I guided. I handed them notebooks, gave them templates, showed them how to document, how to push back, how to protect themselves. Each person reminded me of the scared version, of me who once packed up a desk with shaking hands and left a building I thought I'd belong in forever. They were scared. But they weren't alone, because now they had me, and I wasn't scared anymore. One woman came in just before closing. Late. 20s, sleepless eyes, clutching a backpack like a lifeline. "They're trying to make me resign," she whispered, telling me I'm not a team player. "Are you?" I asked gently. "I show up early. I take care of everyone's tasks. But I spoke up about a safety issue last week. Now they say I'm not collaborative." I slid a form across the table. "Let's start here." Her voice cracked. "I can't afford to lose this job." "I know," I said. "But what you can't afford is to let them erase you." We sat for 2 hours, filing, detailing, giving shape to the chaos. As she left, she hugged me so tightly it took my breath away. "No one else believed me," she whispered. "I do," I replied, "and that's enough to start." Each case was personal. Each win felt like reclaiming a little more justice for all the times we stayed silent, took it, and moved on. That wasn't me anymore, and it didn't have to be them either. Then came another email from medtech.Dr. Torres again. "We'd like to feature your story in our employee training program," she wrote, "as a case study in courage and accountability." I paused. This company had once tried to erase me. Now they wanted to immortalize me as a model of reform. Part of me bristled. But another part saw the bigger picture. If my story could help protect even one person from going through what I did, wasn't that the goal all along? A week later, my face was on a slide deck. A room full of new hires listened as a trainer spoke. "This is Whitney Monroe." She stood up to a broken system, and because of her, this company became better. I watched from the back, quiet, proud. Got a message that same afternoon from a woman in another city. "Hi, Whitney. I saw your story in our internal newsletter. I'm going through something similar at my own job. Can you help?" And just like that, it spread. It kept spreading. Emails, DMs, handwritten letters, people from other companies, other cities, even other industries, reached out with stories that sounded all too familiar. My boss called me insubordinate for asking a question. I was laid off after speaking up about racist jokes in the break room. "I just need someone to tell me I'm not crazy." Every time I wrote back, I listened. I offered advice where I could. Sometimes I connected them to legal help, sometimes to mental health resources, and sometimes all they needed was someone to say, "You're not imagining it. What's happening to you is not okay." My story had become more than a personal victory. It was a signal flare, a message that said, you don't have to stay silent, and you don't have to stay small. One morning, while scrolling through my email with a cup of coffee, I found something that made me laugh out loud. The subject line read, "Whitney Monroe, HR Magazine cover interview?" I blinked. Was this a joke? It wasn't. They wanted to feature me in a special issue on workplace justice and advocacy. The journalist who interviewed me was kind and sharp, asking real questions. None of that surface-level fluff. At the end of the interview, she asked, "What drives you, Whitney?" I didn't even hesitate. "Everyone deserves to go to work without fear," I said. "Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. When we stay silent in the face of abuse, we become part of it. But when we speak, when we refuse to look away, that's when the change begins." When the article came out, Marcus texted me. "Saw your interview in HR Mag. You're famous now." I smiled, snapped a picture of the article on my kitchen counter, and texted him back. "Not famous. Just loud enough now that people can't ignore me." Sometimes I thought about the version of me who didn't know this was possible. The Whitney who stood frozen on that stage, betrayed in front of an entire company. The Whitney who went home, to an empty apartment, unsure how to pay rent, feeling like her entire identity had just been erased. I wish I could go back and whisper in her ear, "This isn't the end, it's the beginning." Because it was. About a year and a half after my termination, I was invited to a National Workers' Rights Summit in D.C. I was asked to speak on a panel called Voices That Spark Reform. I met organizers, whistleblowers, union leaders. I met people who had gone up against multi-billion-dollar corporations and walked out stronger, with others behind them. It reminded me of what Patricia Wong once said when she handed me that USB stick. I was scared to speak up, but I see now. Change only happens when someone dares to go first. I had gone first, but now I was one of many, and there was power in that. Not long after, I got another message from Dr. Torres. She was launching a company-wide initiative focused on ethical leadership, and she wanted my help shaping the curriculum. "Are you sure the company is ready for me to come back in that way?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "We're not just ready, we need it. Your story is woven into our culture now, not because of what happened to you, but because of what you did with it." It was one of those full-circle moments you don't see coming. I'd been erased from MedTech once. Now I was helping write their future. And then something beautiful happened. Janet got promoted, twice. She was now heading an entire department. One day, she called me just to scream with joy into the phone. "I have a window now, Whitney. A window!" Marcus sent me a photo of his team, smiling, collaborative, healthy. Lisa emailed me a thank you note. She was working at a disability advocacy nonprofit now. Tommy from accounting? He got certified in caregiving so he could help his mom full-time. Still sends me cards every few months. Every little win felt like justice echoing through the world. One morning, I opened my calendar and saw a reminder I hadn't noticed in a while. It simply read, "Annual Dinner, MedTech." I stared at. The first one broke me, the second one rebuilt me. What would the third one be? That night, I got another unexpected email. Subject, "One more thing." It was from Dr. Torres. "We're creating a courage grant, an internal fund for employees who face workplace retaliation or hardship. We're naming it the Whitney Monroe Fund." I stared at the screen, stunned. You turned a personal injustice into company-wide change. We want that legacy to live on. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed. Not because I needed my name on something, but because what once felt like the end of my career was now inspiring systems of protection. People wouldn't have to fight alone anymore, and that was more than I ever could have imagined. The night of the third MedTech annual dinner arrived, same hotel ballroom, same round tables and white linen, but the energy? Different, hopeful, electric, whole. I wore a black jumpsuit this time, tailored, confident, unapologetically powerful. I wasn't trying to disappear anymore. As I walked through the crowd, I saw faces light up, smiles, hugs, people pulling me aside to say thank you, to say they remembered, to say they finally understood what courage looks like in real time. Dr. Torres greeted me near the stage. "You ready?" I nodded. "More than I ever thought I'd be." She smiled. "Then go give them what they came for." The lights dimmed. The MC stepped up to the microphone. This year, for the first time, we're proud to present the Workplace Courage Award. This award honors individuals who have changed the fabric of our company through resilience, integrity, and a relentless commitment to justice. The room stilled. And there is no better person to receive this inaugural award than Whitney Monroe. Applause thundered. People stood, clapped, whistled. Some even wiped tears. As I stepped on stage, I felt the weight of the past, but also the freedom of having faced it, named it, and changed it. I took the mic and smiled. "I stood on this stage once, feeling like the smallest person in the room," I began. "I was humiliated in front of all of you, and for a long time, I believed that moment defined me. But I was wrong." I took a breath, because that moment wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. I scanned the room. Some new faces, many familiar, all of them quiet, listening. One person's cruelty taught me my own strength. One lie exposed a deeper truth. And one attempt to erase me only revealed what couldn't be destroyed. People nodded. I could see it in their eyes. They got it. And to anyone sitting in this room today, wondering if they're allowed to speak up, wondering if they'll be believed, I promise you, yes, you are. And yes, you will. The applause this time wasn't just for me. It was for everyone in that room who had ever doubted their voice. After the dinner, a young employee approached me. She looked about 24, nervous and hopeful. I just wanted to say, "Thank you," she said, holding my hand. "My friend was going through something awful here last year. But after your story came out, she filed a complaint. And things actually changed." Her eyes filled with tears. "You saved her job." I smiled. "No, she did that. I just made sure she knew it was possible." Weeks later, I found myself on a panel at a national HR conference. Beside me sat corporate VPs, labor attorneys, and workplace psychologists. But when the moderator asked why we do what we do, I kept it simple, because I remember what it feels like to be erased, and I refuse to let that happen to anyone else, not on my watch. One day, while organizing files in the Hope Harbor break room, I got another letter. This one was handwritten. Pale blue paper. Neat cursive. No signature. But I knew who it was from the moment I started reading. I still think about what I did. Every day. Not because I was caught, but because I finally understand the damage I caused. I used to believe power was something you protected at all costs. You showed me that real power is something you share. Thank you for showing me a better way. See. I folded the letter and tucked it into my desk drawer. It wasn't about vindication anymore. It was about transformation. And somewhere deep down, I hoped she meant it. Now, every morning, I open my laptop with a sense of peace. On my calendar. A meeting with a woman experiencing retaliation after reporting harassment. A strategy session with our new policy reform team. Lunch with Janet, who's now thriving and mentoring new managers. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus. Your HR keynote video. Legend status achieved. I grin, type back. Just another Tuesday. The anniversary of my firing came and went this year with barely a ripple. Not because it didn't matter, but because my life had moved forward so far. That day no longer defined me. I thought about David, about the night I knelt by his grave and whispered, "I don't know what to do." I wish he could see me now, not because I need his approval, but because he would be proud. I drove to Riverside Cemetery one sunny afternoon, wine bottle in hand, 2 glasses, just like last time. I kept going, I said aloud, pouring one for him. And now I help others do the same. The oak trees swayed. A breeze passed by, warm and steady. I closed my eyes, and in that moment, I didn't feel angry. Or sad. Or even victorious. I felt whole. There will always be people like Camille. People who lead with fear instead of empathy, who try to control with cruelty, who mistake silence for weakness. But now I know something they don't. Silence can break. And when it does, it becomes a voice so powerful it echoes through halls, through boardrooms, through entire industries. I am that echo, and I will never be quiet again.